In this series of videos, I'm going to show you Reaper from the ground up. So this is Reaper 7. So Reaper is a powerful recording and editing program for Windows, Mac, and Linux. What makes it so special is that it's simple, but also completely customizable. In other words, instead of changing how we work, we can make Reaper work the way we do. So if you're coming from another DAW and switching to Reaper 7, you can change all the key commands, toolbars, menus, and even the mouse behaviors to work how you're most comfortable. And if Reaper is your first DAW, you can create your own way of working with Reaper, as the possibilities are endless. So instead of you learning how to use Reaper, Reaper can adjust to you and how you prefer to work. So let's go over the basics. When we first open Reaper, it looks like this. Right over here is the arrangement window, and to the left is where we'll have our tracks. Down here is the mixer. Let's hide that for now, so we have a bit more room. Right now, we have no tracks, but we can double click right over here to create as many tracks as we want. Now we have 3, so it's very easy to add new tracks to our projects, and we can delete them just by selecting them and hitting the delete key. Now they're gone. And one of the most unique things about Reaper is that any track can contain any type of media. There are no dedicated audio tracks, MIDI tracks, video tracks, or even aux or bus tracks. There are no track types. So any track we create can contain any of them, a mixture of them, or all of them. We can even make a track a folder that contains many tracks inside that folder. But we'll get to that a bit later. Now, the way Reaper works is it plays back our media, whether it be audio, MIDI, or video, from left to right. So any items that are in this window are going to play back in that order, based on the tempo we choose. And right up here, we have our timeline or ruler. It can be divided by bars and beats, minutes and seconds, using timecode, or even samples. Let's drag in some audio by going to our hard drive, which is the Explorer on Windows, or the Finder on Mac. And let's drag and drop some audio to our track. I have a drum loop right here. If I drag it to this track and drop it, it places the audio right on that track. And we can see that it automatically names the track based on the audio file we just dragged in. If we undo it, it's blank. And redo it, it goes back to the name of the file. And it snaps right to the grid because we have snapping turned on over here in the toolbar. If we turn it off, it no longer snaps to the grid. And if we turn it back on, it does again. So if we play it, we should hear this drum loop. And we do. And it loops because we have looping turned on down here in the transport. So let's drag in some more samples. We'll go back to our hard drive. This time we'll choose a bass loop, and instead of dragging it onto the track, we'll drag it below the track. And see, Reaper's going to create a new track if we let go, like this. And again, it auto names it based on the file name. So now we have some drums and bass. Let's drag in one more. This time I'll grab a synth, and instead of dragging it onto a track, we can go below our tracks over here on the left side. And again, let go, and that creates a track with a loop on it. And again, auto-named. So now we have 3 tracks. Now all these files in Reaper are called items, or media items. We could delete them, undo, we could cut them, we could paste them right on a grid, we could trim them by putting our cursor over here, notice it changes to the trim tool, and trim it based on our grid, or turn off snapping on the grid and trim them like this. And we could do it with multiple items at the same time. Select these all, trim it on this side, they all trim together, or this side, And notice by default, our items are going to loop. So if I zoom out and drag this out like this, the drums are looping, or the bass, or the synth. So they loop when we drag them out by default. We could also fade them, put our cursor in the upper left, see how the cursor changes. So it fades in, or it fades out. Again, we could do it to all of them just by selecting all of them and fading it in, fading it out. We could use razor editing right here and create razor edits to edit within the files. So I could draw one here and cut it, and that cuts a hole in that item. Or do it on multiple items like this and delete it, or cut it and paste it where we want. Now the section over here is known as the track control panel. In it, we could adjust the volume of our tracks, we can mute our tracks, we could solo our tracks, we could even drag to mute them, or drag to solo them, or unsolo them. We could pan them over here. Let's pan our synth to the left or right. And we can add effects to our tracks by clicking the effects button, which opens the effects dialog right over here, using the included effects or any third-party effects you add to your system. But we'll go over that a bit later. We can add sends to our tracks by clicking the routing button and sending our tracks from one track to another, or creating buses to bus multiple tracks to another track. But again, we'll go over that in more detail in a separate video. We could automate using envelopes. I could type V for volume and automate the drums, or P for pan to automate the pan for the drum track or any track we want. Because everything in Reaper can be automated, including any effects or parameters on those effects. Let's reopen the mixer, go to View, Mixer, shows back up down here. Now we get bigger faders to work with. It shows up down here in the dock, but we can drag it out and make it float, let go, and now it's floating in its own separate window. And here we get bigger faders to adjust the volume of our tracks. So we can adjust their level in the mixer, but also in the track control panel over here. And we could also change the tempo of our song down over here. Right now it's set to 120 beats per minute. We can make it faster, and the loops play back faster. Or slower. We could also adjust the rate right over here, which is not only how fast it plays back, but also affects the pitch. So if we go a bit slower, it's slower, but the pitch is lower. We'll make it faster. And to bring it back to normal, just double click the rate button. And now it's back to normal. We could also adjust the heights of our track. Put the mouse right here to adjust the height of this track, or this track. Or use our mouse to adjust it all, like this. We could also adjust the width of our tracks. Put the mouse right here to make the track control panel wider, or remove it completely so we just see our items. Or bring it back to normal. Now up here, we have the toolbar buttons. As I showed you, we have razor editing, which turns razor editing on like this. So we can work on sections, turn it off. We could lock our items so we can't accidentally move them because they're locked. Can't go up or down, left or right. We'll unlock them so we can. And we could turn off snapping over here, hide the grid lines. And a bunch of other features we'll go over in a different video. And down over here, we have the transport. Here's our play button, which we could use by hitting the spacebar to start and stop it. We could use the record button, we could loop, we could rewind and fast forward, and stop and pause. Along with seeing the bars and beats, minutes and seconds, where the transport is, our meters, tempo, and our rate. And if we don't want to see the transport, go to View and hide it right here, which gives us more screen real estate. We can view it again by turning it on right here. Then it shows up again, along with the mixer, or we could hide it, or dock it again, down at the bottom, or hide it from here. We could zoom in with the mouse wheel to get closer or further, or zoom up or down so we can see more or less of our tracks. We could scroll right with the mouse wheel or left. And one of the best features in Reaper is we could right-click almost anything. If we right-click our items, it brings up a contextual menu with adjustments we can make based on items. We could group them, set up takes, make comps, adjust the item settings just for that item, or multiple items if multiple items are chosen. If we right-click our tracks in the track control panel, we get a contextual menu based on our tracks. We could insert new tracks, tracks from template, remove tracks, duplicate tracks, and so on. We could right-click in the ruler, get the same thing based on ruler, do the same thing for the solo button or the mute button. Just about anything in Reaper can be right-clicked to give us options based on what we click on. So if you're ever confused on what you want to do, just right-click something and you can usually find what you need. And all the menus up here can be completely customized. So you can change them based on the features we use the most. And we could also adjust our preferences with a whole bunch of different panels to adjust. Everything in Reaper can be changed to, again, how you prefer to work. And then finally, we have our actions. If we go up here, show action list, here's all the actions that perform functions in Reaper. As you can tell, there's a whole bunch of them. We could assign keyboard shortcuts to all of them. There's a bunch by default right here, but we could change all those keyboard shortcuts to how you prefer to work. And also create custom actions or macros that do multiple actions with just one keyboard shortcut. So as you can tell, there's so much to do in this program. And we'll go through it all in the next few videos. So that's the basics of Reaper 7. Again, we'll go through all of it in the next few videos because this is Reaper 7. Thanks.
Bingo, boys, let's go.